The night shift at Earth's deep space listening post was usually quiet. The room was dark except for the soft glow of monitors. Lieutenant Mark Havelock sat in his chair, sipping cold coffee, his eyes half closed. Most signals they caught were simple things, old satellite transmissions, echoes of comets passing through asteroid belts, or faint messages from colony stations asking for supplies. But tonight, something was different. A sharp tone cut through the silence. Mark's screen lit up red. The message was weak, broken, almost lost in the background noise of space. He straightened in his chair, frowning. "What is this?" he muttered. His fingers flew over the console as he adjusted the signal filters. Static hissed loudly, then cleared just enough for words to form. "Help. Please. They are coming." The voice was shaking, high-pitched, not human. Mark froze. It wasn't from any Earth ship. He could hear panic in the tone. The voice cracked again through the interference. "They are burning our cities, killing everyone. Please. Deathworlders, help us." That word made him pause. Deathworlders. Most humans didn't use that term. It was what aliens called species that came from extremely dangerous home planets. Planets like Earth, where everything could kill you. Wild storms, predators, diseases, even the ground itself in some places. To aliens, humans were strange, fast-healing, adaptable, and terrifying in war. Mark ran the signal through the coordinates filter. His eyes widened. This message wasn't from any known colony. It was from a system far beyond the borders of human space, deep in the Perseus Arm. The location was marked in red on the star map, a warning zone. Ships didn't go there. Too far, too dangerous. The signal kept repeating, the same voice breaking apart in static. "Please, Deathworlders, save us!" Then there was a deep sound, like thunder, and a scream. After that, silence. Mark swallowed hard, his heart racing. He opened a secure channel to Earth Defense Command. Within the hour, the message reached Admiral Karen Voss. She stood in the command chamber, the blue hologram of the galaxy map rotating slowly in front of her. Her officers stood at attention as the transmission played. The alien voice echoed in the chamber, every word heavy with fear. "This could be a trap," one officer said. "The location is deep inside unknown territory. Sending ships there is risky." Or, another replied, "It's real. And if it's real, something out there is powerful enough to wipe out an entire civilization." Admiral Voss stayed quiet, her eyes locked on the red coordinates. She had seen the results of war. She had fought in the siege of Europa, where human colonies were burned by pirates. She knew what desperation sounded like. "They asked for Deathworlders," she said at last. "They know who we are. If they're calling us, they've tried everything else." She turned to her tactical officer. "Prepare the ISS Leviathan. Full crew, full weapons. We leave within the day." The Leviathan was not just a warship. It was the warship, 3 kilometers long, built with black armor that could survive direct hits from planet-based cannons. Its railguns could pierce moon rock. Its engines could cross entire sectors in days. Every alien nation knew the name, and most avoided its path. While preparations began, word spread through Earth's defense network. Some officers were eager. Others whispered in dark corners, "We shouldn't go. Whatever sent that signal, it's beyond our wars." But the orders stood. The Leviathan would launch. 2 days later, the great ship floated above Earth like a black blade in the night. Hundreds of crew members boarded, each selected for survival in hostile environments. Marines wore armor designed for toxic worlds. Engineers carried equipment to repair damage in deep space. Pilots studied maps of sectors no human had entered, in living memory. Before departure, Admiral Voss stood before her crew. "We don't know what we will find. We don't know who sent this call for help, but they called us. That means they believe we can do what no one else can. We will prove them right. The jump into hyperspace was silent from inside the ship, but outside, stars stretched into bright lines as the Leviathan tore through the void. For days they traveled, passing beyond the safe, charted regions of space. As they neared the source, sensors began picking up strange readings. Faint heat signatures from drifting debris, radiation spikes from destroyed reactors, fragments of ships scattered across light years. It was as if a great battle had swept through, leaving only ghosts behind. In the observation deck, Lieutenant Arya Chen stared at the wreckage floating by. "Whoever did this," she whispered, "didn't just want to win. They wanted to erase everything." Finally, the Leviathan dropped out of hyperspace. The alien world appeared on the main screen. It was dark, no city lights. Huge scars ran across its surface, burning craters, shattered mountains. Smoke drifted through the atmosphere like black rivers. "Scanning for survivors," the operations officer said. A pause. "I have life signs, small pockets, underground." "Open a channel," Voss ordered. Static hissed for a moment. Then, a voice came through, weak, broken, but alive. "Is this the Deathworlders? Are you human?" "This is Admiral Karen Voss of the United Earth Defense Command," she replied. "We received your signal. We're here to help." There was a long pause. Then the alien voice spoke again, trembling. "It's too late for us, but maybe not for you. They will come for you next. The Scarith never stop." The name hung in the air like a shadow. No one on the bridge recognized it, but something in the alien's tone made every crew member uneasy. Before Voss could reply, a loud alarm rang across the Leviathan. The sensor officer shouted, "Multiple contacts! Incoming fast!" On the main screen, dark shapes emerged from behind the ruined planet. Ships, dozens of them. Their hulls were jagged, almost organic, with sharp edges like blades. Their engines glowed a deep blood red. The alien voice cried out, "They've found you! Run! Deathworlders or not, you cannot fight them all!" Admiral Voss stood tall, her voice calm but firm. "We didn't come here to run," she turned to her crew. "Battle stations. Let's show them why the galaxy fears Earth." The Leviathan's weapons systems roared to life, the deep thrum of the main railguns shaking. The ship. The red glow of the enemy ships grew brighter as they closed in. The first shots were fired. Far below, in the ruins of the alien city, survivors looked up at the sky and saw something they had never seen before. A Deathworlder warship standing, its ground against the Scarith. And in that moment, they dared to hope. The first volley from the Leviathan hit like a thunderclap in space. The railguns spat streams of hypervelocity rounds that ripped into the lead Scarith ships, tearing their hulls apart before they could even return fire. Explosions bloomed silently in the void, fragments spinning away into darkness. But the rest of the enemy formation kept coming, their jagged ships weaving in unnatural patterns, darting between incoming shots with disturbing speed. Admiral Voss stood behind the helm officer, her eyes locked on the tactical display. "Keep the main batteries on the largest ships, missiles on the flankers. Don't let them close to boarding range." The crew moved with precision, their voices calm despite the growing swarm on the screen. Every few seconds, another Scarith vessel was torn apart, but for each destroyed, 2 more appeared from the far side of the planet. The battle was brutal, but short. The Leviathan's superior firepower forced the enemy to pull back, their red glowing engines vanishing into the shadows of space. For a brief moment, the void was still again. But the Admiral knew it wouldn't last. "Damage report," she ordered. "Shields at 83%. Minor hull scoring on deck 9. No serious damage," came the reply. Voss gave a short nod. "Good. Launch recon drones." I want a full sweep of the planet's surface and subsurface areas. Locate every survivor you can. Within minutes, the drones descended through the thick, smoky atmosphere, their sensors piercing through clouds of ash. Images began streaming back to the bridge, ruined cities reduced to twisted skeletons of metal and stone, craters still glowing with heat, shattered highways leading to nowhere. In the deepest parts of the old cities, the drones picked up faint energy readings and life signs, small groups of aliens huddled in the darkness. "They're underground," said Lieutenant Aria Chen, scanning the data. "Looks like they've been hiding for weeks. Radiation levels above ground are high but survivable for us, not for them." Voss gave the order. "Prep shuttle teams. Marines armed for hostile ground contact. We don't know what's down there." 15 minutes later, the first dropships broke through the planet's clouds, their metal hulls glowing red from the heat of re-entry. They landed in the ruins of what had once been a towering city center, now just piles of ash and broken steel. The Marines moved quickly, their black armor gleaming under the dim light filtering through the clouds. They advanced with weapons ready, scanning for movement. It was silent, too silent. Even the wind seemed to have died here. Sergeant Darius Cole led the first team into a half-collapsed transit tunnel. The air was thick with dust, every footstep, echoing off the walls. Then, from the darkness ahead, small figures emerged, thin, pale-skinned aliens with large, dark eyes wearing torn clothing. They flinched at the sight of the Marines, but didn't run. Cole lowered his rifle slightly. "We're here to help. Are you the ones who sent the signal?" The tallest of the aliens stepped forward, his voice trembling. "I sent it. I am Varesh, last speaker of the Council of Mirren. We called for the Deathworlders. And you came." Cole nodded. "We heard you. We fought off some of those things in orbit." Varesh's eyes widened in fear. "The Scarith will return. They always return. They do not leave until there is nothing left." His voice cracked. "They don't just kill. They take. They take the bodies. They take the machines. And they grow stronger." The Marines exchanged uneasy glances. One of the younger survivors, barely taller than a human child, clutched at Varesh's leg and whispered something in their native tongue. Varesh turned back to Cole. "We saw one of them on the ground, hunting." Cole activated his comm. "Command, be advised. Possible hostile ground presence." Admiral Voss's voice came through. "Understood. Maintain position and extract the survivors. We'll scan for hostiles." But before Cole could respond, a sound echoed through the tunnel. A low, clicking hiss, too rhythmic to be natural. The Marines froze, weapons up. The darkness beyond the survivors seemed to shift. Then it moved. A shape slid out from the shadows, its black skin blending with the tunnel walls. Two red eyes glowed faintly, unblinking. The thing was long-limbed, with jagged claws and a mouth that opened wider than any predator Cole had seen. It moved with unsettling silence except for that slow, deliberate clicking. "Contact!" Cole shouted. The tunnel exploded with gunfire. High-caliber rounds slammed into the creature, but it moved impossibly fast, darting between pillars, leaping onto the wall, then the ceiling. A Marine screamed as the creature's claws tore through his armor like paper. Cole fired his sidearm at point-blank range, finally dropping the beast in a heap. The stench of burning flesh filled the air. Varesh stared at the corpse, his voice barely a whisper. "That was only a scout." Cole's blood went cold. If that was a scout, what did the hunters look like? Back on the Leviathan, sensors began picking up faint movements across the planet's surface. Dozens, no hundreds, of life signs, all converging toward the Marine landing zones. Admiral Voss didn't hesitate. "Pull the teams back. All survivors to the shuttles, now." On the ground, the Marines hustled the Mirren survivors through the rubble as distant, echoing clicks began to multiply. Shadows moved in the smoke, too many to count. The first of the Scarith hunters broke through the mist, their bodies glistening with alien armor grown directly into their flesh. The Marines opened fire. The night lit up with flashes of gunfire and explosions, but the Scarith kept coming. Dropships lifted off under heavy covering fire, carrying the survivors to the safety of the Leviathan. As the last ship left the surface, the hunters reached the landing site, their claws raking the metal where the dropship had stood seconds before. On the bridge, Voss watched the feed until the last survivor was aboard. Her jaw was tight, her voice cold. So now we've seen them, and they've seen us. Varesh stood near the tactical station, his face pale. They will not forget. You came here. You have made yourselves their next prey. Outside, in the blackness of space, faint red glows began to appear at the edge of the system, the Scarith fleet returning. And this time, they were not alone. They were bringing something much larger. The red glows at the edge of the system multiplied until they formed a jagged wall of light in the darkness. The tactical display painted the picture in cold numbers, 63 confirmed enemy signatures, more joining every second. Some were smaller, Predator-class raiders, but several were massive, each one rivaling a human battleship in size. In the middle of the formation loomed a vessel so large the computer could not scan its full dimensions without recalibrating. Admiral Voss stood at the center of the bridge, her face lit by the shifting light of the screens. The survivors they had rescued were gathered in the observation bay under guard, their wide alien eyes fixed on the void as though the ships themselves were nightmares crawling closer. Varesh's voice was heavy, quiet, but cutting through the tension. You have to leave. You cannot face the hunt. Voss didn't look at him. We didn't come this far to run, Varesh. It's not about courage, Varesh said, almost pleading. It's about inevitability. When the hunt begins, they will follow you across the galaxy. They do not stop until they have tasted the kill. His words settled over the crew like frost, but no one spoke of retreat. The Leviathan's weapons crews were already arming every railgun, missile battery, and plasma turret. Deep inside the ship, the Marines were locking down corridors, sealing blast doors, and checking their armor seals. Engineers reinforced shield emitters, their hands moving in quick, practiced motions. The deck vibrated faintly as the ship's primary reactors spooled up to maximum output. The first wave of Scarith ships broke formation and darted forward. They moved like living things, weaving in unpredictable patterns, their hulls shifting, color to blend with the star field. It made targeting them almost impossible until they were nearly in firing range. Lock on using thermal and gravimetric, Voss ordered. Ignore the visual interference. The gunners adjusted. The first shots from the Leviathan's railguns ripped through the void, hitting the lead attackers and shattering them in bursts of molten metal. The Scarith response was instant. Lances of red energy cut across space, slamming into the Leviathans. Shields with a force that made the entire ship shudder. Shield strength dropped from 100 to 91% in seconds. Onboard alarms wailed, but were quickly silenced as crews worked with calm urgency. Multiple boarders inbound, the sensor officer reported. Small craft approaching, at high velocity. They're trying to punch through the hull. Deploy interceptors, Voss commanded. In the hangar bays, sleek human fighters launched into the void, engaging the Scarith boarding craft in brutal dogfights. The fighters' cannons spat streams of white-hot projectiles, tearing into the enemy ships, but a few slipped through the defense net. One Scarith craft slammed into the outer hull of the Leviathan, its claws locking onto the armor like an insect burrowing into prey. Inside, in Corridor Delta 7, Marines waited behind heavy barricades. The impact reverberated through the walls, followed by the screech of metal being sliced open. The breach exploded inward, and Scareth hunters poured through, taller than a man, moving with terrifying speed, their armor a blend of metal and bone. The Marines opened fire, filling the corridor with the deafening roar of rifles and shotguns. The first wave of hunters went down, black blood splattering the deck, but more surged forward. Sergeant Cole barked orders, tossing grenades that sent shockwaves through the hall, the air filled with the smell of burning alien flesh. Back on the bridge, Voss monitored the situation with a calm that came from decades of battle. Seal. Bulkhead doors around Delta 7 and Epsilon 9. Force them into kill zones. The Scareth adapted quickly, splitting into smaller groups to attack from multiple directions. In the engineering deck, a team of hunters breached through a maintenance shaft, slaughtering 2 technicians before security could respond. The creatures moved in total silence, no war cries, no wasted motion, only the killing. Voss's voice came through the comm, cold and direct. "Contain them. We can't afford to lose propulsion." Outside, the massive Scareth flagship began to move. Its hull was a jagged mountain of black metal and pulsing red veins of energy. The computer finally returned its size reading. 5 kilometers from bow to stern, armed with weapons arrays that dwarfed anything in the human arsenal. "It's charging something," the sensor officer said, his voice tight. "Energy buildup is massive." "Evasive maneuvers," Voss ordered instantly. A moment later, a beam of crimson light lanced out from the flagship, cutting through the void like a scythe. The Leviathan rolled hard to port, the beam grazing its starboard shields. The shield matrix flared white before collapsing in that section, hull armor melting along a 100-meter stretch. "Damage control teams to Deck 12, Voss said without raising her voice. In the observation bay, Varesh gripped the edge of the railing, his alien eyes fixed on the flagship. "That is the Hunter Lord's ship," he said softly. "If it is here, the hunt will not end until one of us is gone." "Then one of us will be gone," Voss replied. Her words were simple, but the bridge crew felt the weight behind them. For 40 minutes, the battle raged. The Leviathan danced. Between incoming fire, using its smaller profile to avoid the heavier weapons while shredding the enemy escorts. On the hull, Marine squads fought in brutal close quarters, turning each breached corridor into a graveyard for the hunters. But every kill came with a cost. Human bodies carried to the medbay, armor torn open by claws, blood soaking the deck. Then, at last, the Scareth ships began to pull back. The smaller vessels darted away into the darkness, the flagship slowly retreating toward the far edge of the system. The bridge erupted in cautious relief, but Voss didn't smile. "They're not retreating," she said quietly. "They're hunting." As if to prove her point, the long-range sensors pinged with multiple new contacts. Not warships this time, but something else. Dozens of faint signals on the planet's surface, moving fast toward the last known survivor hideouts. "They're sending ground forces," the tactical officer confirmed. Voss didn't hesitate. "Launch dropships." "Marines, you're going back down. We're not leaving anyone for them." Sergeant Cole heard the order over the comm and didn't waste time. His squad rearmed, grabbed extra ammunition, and loaded onto the shuttles with grim determination. The survivors they had rescued earlier begged them not to return, but the Marines ignored the pleas. The dropships roared back through the smoke-filled skies, landing near the dark, shattered remains of Mirren cities. The moment they touched down, the hunt began. The clicking sound was everywhere now, echoing off broken buildings, bouncing through the empty streets. Shadows moved between the ruins, red eyes flashing briefly before disappearing again. Cole's squad advanced in tight formation, every angle covered. The thermal scanners lit up with heat signatures, dozens, closing fast. The first Scareth. Hunter hit them from above, dropping from the side of a ruined skyscraper. Its claws tore through one Marine's helmet before the squad could blow it apart with concentrated fire. More came from the alleys, the rooftops, even the sewers. The battle became chaos, gunfire lighting the darkness, explosions sending dust clouds rolling through the streets. Cole barked for extraction, but the comms crackled with interference. From above, the Leviathan watched the heat signatures on. The planet multiply until the screen was almost solid red. The hunt was in full motion, and the Scarith were everywhere. And then, at the edge of the sensor range, something new appeared. A massive underground heat bloom moving toward the surface. It was far bigger than any hunter they had faced yet. Whatever it was coming straight for the Marines. The heat signature rising from beneath the ground grew larger by the second until it eclipsed all other readings on the tactical display. It moved with the steady inevitability of something that knew nothing could stop it. On the surface, Sergeant Cole and his Marines felt the ground shudder beneath their boots, dust trickling from shattered walls as deep rumbling echoed through the ruins. "Command, we've got something big coming up," Cole reported, his voice tight. "Bigger than a hunter, bigger than a dropship." The reply came instantly from Admiral Voss aboard the Leviathan. "Acknowledged. Hold position until extraction. We're bringing the guns." Overhead, the Leviathan adjusted its orbit, massive thrusters firing to bring the planet's surface directly under its forward batteries. The railguns began cycling, each round the size of a small car, each capable of punching through kilometers of solid rock. "Targeting that heat bloom," the gunnery chief confirmed. "Firing solution locked." The first shot slammed into the planet, a thunderous impact that split streets and shattered ancient foundations. The ground shook violently, and from the fracture a plume of molten debris erupted. For a heartbeat, silence followed. Then the creature emerged. It was a nightmare given form, its carapace a jagged fortress of black and crimson, its many legs ending in claws that could crush a tank. Its head was elongated, armored like a battering ram, with a mouth that split into 4 jagged sections, lined with teeth. Its size dwarfed buildings, its eyes glowing like coals as it roared, not with sound but with a subsonic vibration that made every bone in the Marines' bodies ache. "Engage! Bring it down!" Cole shouted. Heavy machine. Guns and rocket launchers roared to life, pounding the creature's armor with streams of fire and explosions. Chunks of carapace shattered away, but the beast didn't slow. It lunged forward with terrifying speed, smashing through walls and hurling rubble aside as it charged the Marine line. Overhead, the Leviathan opened fire with its main railguns, slamming hypervelocity rounds into the monster's body. Each impact sent sprays of black ichor into the air, but still it came, claws tearing craters in the ground. One swipe sent 2 Marines flying, their armor crumpling under the force. Cole fired a rocket directly into the thing's open mouth, the explosion rattling windows half a kilometer away. The beast staggered, then reared back, its roar shaking the city. "Command, we need that thing gone yesterday," Cole barked. "Understood," Voss replied. "All forward batteries, full barrage. Give it everything." The Leviathan's broadside lit the skies, plasma lances and mass driver rounds raining down like the wrath of gods. The creature's carapace cracked and split under the onslaught, ichor gushing in rivers. Finally, with a shudder that rippled through the earth, it collapsed, its massive bulk crushing the ruins beneath it. The battlefield went silent, except for the hiss of cooling metal and the distant clicks of Scarith hunters retreating into the shadows. Cole's Marines regrouped quickly, pulling the wounded toward the extraction zone. Dropships descended, their engines scattering dust clouds as they landed. "Move! Move!" Cole ordered, covering the retreat with bursts of rifle fire. From the air, the devastation was clear. The creature's corpse was a mountain of twisted alien flesh, the ground around it scorched and shattered from the Leviathan's weapons. As the last Marine stepped aboard, the dropships lifted off, climbing through the smoke toward the waiting warship above. On the bridge, Voss watched the surface disappear beneath them. "Get us back into high orbit," she said. "I want full scans for any more of those things." The sensor officer nodded. No more large-scale heat signatures. Just smaller hunter packs, but... He hesitated. Admiral, we've got movement on the far side of the planet. Large formations, ground and air. Voss studied the data. They're trying to flank us. They want us to split our fire. She turned to the communications officer. Send a message to all decks. We're not splitting anything. We end this now. The Leviathan moved into attack position, its black armor glinting faintly in the light of the distant sun. Enemy craft rose from the far side of the planet, swarms of them, their engines glowing that familiar blood red. But this time, they came straight into the warship's firing arcs. Target all incoming, no warnings, no mercy, Voss commanded. The void erupted in violence. The Leviathan's forward batteries unleashed a storm of firepower, ripping the first wave to shreds. Missile salvos streaked through the darkness, detonating in blossoms of light that consumed entire squadrons. Plasma lances carved burning scars across the enemy's jagged hulls. The survivors of the Mirren race watched from the safety of the observation deck, their eyes wide. One of them whispered in disbelief, "They are not just defending. They are destroying." Varesh, the last speaker, didn't take his gaze off the battle. "This is why they are called Deathworlders," he said softly. "They do not fight for survival. They fight to finish the enemy." Within 20 minutes, the sky above the ruined planet was littered with drifting wreckage. The Scarith forces had been annihilated. The few remaining ships fled into deep space, engines flaring as they vanished from sensors. Voss exhaled slowly. "Status of ground forces?" "All recovered," came the reply. "Minimal losses considering the scale of engagement." The crew exchanged glances. Minimal losses against the Scarith were unheard of. Voss knew it wouldn't last. Victory against them was never permanent. She turned to the navigation officer. "Plot a course for the nearest Allied outpost. We'll offload survivors there before deciding next steps." Varesh stepped forward, his voice urgent. "You don't understand. You have just bloodied the hunt. They will not forgive this. They will bring more. And when they do, it will not be here. It will be at your home." The words hung heavy in the air. Voss looked at him, her expression unreadable. "Then they'll learn what happens when you hunt Deathworlders on their own ground." Outside, the Leviathan adjusted its course, engines flaring bright as it began to leave the shattered world behind. But at the edge of the system, deep in the darkness where the scanners struggled to see, faint red glows appeared, dozens of them, watching, waiting, and following. The Deathworlder fleet moved like a silent storm through the void, their black-armored warships casting long shadows over the dying stars. Captain Reese stood at the command bridge of the Vanguard, his eyes locked on the tactical displays. The enemy fleet, massive, glowing with alien energy, was forming a blockade around the fragile remnants of the Torvan species. The Torvan had been the ones to send the desperate SOS to Earth, begging for help when their homeworld began to burn under the assault of the Kasor Dominion. Now they were huddled inside scattered asteroid stations, terrified, with no hope, left until the Deathworlders arrived. The bridge crew moved with quiet precision, their fingers flying over controls as the Vanguard systems charged for war. "They haven't detected us yet," the sensor officer reported, her voice steady but cold. "We're still outside their scan net." Reese nodded once. "Good. Keep it that way until I give the order." Outside the viewport, the rest of the Deathworlder fleet drifted in perfect formation, battle cruisers, destroyers, and the monstrous dreadnought Titan's Wrath at the center. Each ship carried weapons so devastating they could strip a planet bare in minutes. The humans had no intention of showing mercy. The Kasor had destroyed entire civilizations in their path, but they had made a fatal mistake by targeting those under Earth's protection. Across the fleet, orders came through secure channels. Strike fast, strike hard, leave nothing of the enemy behind. Reese's comms officer spoke suddenly. "Sir, we're receiving a message from the Torvan leaders. They're asking if you're truly here to help." Reese allowed himself the faintest grim smile. "Tell them yes, and tell them to stay out of our way." In the darkness of space, the Vanguard's engines flared to life, pushing the ship forward. The other Deathworlder vessels followed, a wall of silent, unstoppable force. The Kasor ships began to stir, their sensors finally catching the faint signature of approaching vessels. But it was too late. "All ships, engage!" The order spread through the human fleet like a spark on dry grass. In an instant, beams of pure destruction ripped through the void. The Titan's Wrath fired its main cannon, and a Kasor battleship simply ceased to exist, its hull evaporating into vapor. Human destroyers darted between the larger enemy ships, planting warheads deep into their armored bellies before streaking away. The void was filled with explosions, debris spinning into the darkness. On the Vanguard, Reese kept his voice calm as the chaos unfolded. Target their command ships, cut off their coordination. The humans fought with brutal precision, every move calculated, every strike designed to cripple. The Kasor fought back fiercely, their plasma lances burning holes into the dark, but the Deathworlders were faster, smarter, and utterly merciless. A massive blast shook the Vanguard, but her shields held. Reese didn't flinch. "Push forward, break their line." And then it happened. The center of the Kasor formation collapsed under the relentless human assault. Ships tried to retreat, engines burning hot. But the Deathworlder fleet was already among them, shredding their escape routes, cutting down anything that moved. Within minutes, the once proud Kasor fleet was nothing but twisted wreckage. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the faint crackle of damaged comms. Reese looked at the tactical map. The Torvan asteroid stations were still intact, no casualties reported among them. Mission complete. But this wasn't the end. He knew the Kasor would come again, with more ships and greater fury. And when they did, Earth's Deathworlders would be waiting, ready to finish what they started. As the fleet turned away from the battlefield, the burning wrecks of the enemy lit the void behind them, a warning to anyone watching. When you call for Earth's help, the response is total annihilation. The battlefield still glowed with drifting embers of shattered ships when the Deathworlder fleet began its slow withdrawal, but the air on the Vanguard's bridge was far from calm. Captain Reese stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his gaze locked on the incoming intelligence reports. The victory had been decisive, but there were troubling signs. Scattered enemy transmissions intercepted during the battle hinted at a much larger Kasor war armada assembling deeper in their territory. The Kasor were predators by nature, and predators did not retreat without a plan to strike back. The Torvan had sent a final transmission of gratitude, their voices shaking with relief. But Reese hardly had time to acknowledge it before his comms officer reported a high priority. Encrypted message from Earth Command. He accepted the transmission in his private ready room, the holographic image of Admiral Caro flickering into existence. Caro's expression was grim. "Reese, we've confirmed the Dominion isn't finished. Our long-range scouts report multiple fleets converging. This was just a forward defense. Their main strike force is coming, and they're aiming for the Torvan system as bait." Reese didn't need to ask why. It was a trap, one designed to lure the Deathworlders into overextending. "Orders?" he asked quietly. Caro's voice was low, deliberate. "We're not walking into their trap blindly. I want you to hold, position at the edge of the system, but be ready to strike if the Torvan are threatened. Reinforcements are en route, but they'll take days. Until then, you're the wall." The transmission ended, and Reese returned to the bridge, issuing rapid orders. The fleet shifted into a defensive formation, warships spacing out like silent sentinels across the asteroid belt. Stealth drones were launched, their cloaked forms slipping into the void to monitor enemy movement. Hours turned into tense silence as they waited. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, but the weight of the unknown hung over them like a shadow. Then, in the deep darkness of space, the first signatures appeared. Dozens of massive heat blooms emerging from the Kasor side of the system. The Dominion had arrived. The enemy ships advanced in a perfect spearhead, their sheer numbers dwarfing the Deathworlder force. Yet Reese stood unshaken. "Hold formation," he ordered. The Kasor commander, arrogant in their advantage, transmitted an open broadcast. The alien's voice was harsh, layered with static. "Human captain, leave now, and we will let your fragile fleet survive. Stay, and you will be torn apart." Reese let the silence stretch for several long seconds before replying, his voice calm and cold. "We don't run." The transmission cut, and the Kasor began their advance. The void lit up as their long-range plasma batteries fired, streaks of molten energy racing toward the human line. But the Deathworlders were ready. Shield walls flared to life, absorbing the first barrage, and counterfire erupted from the fleet. The Titan's wrath unleashed its colossal main gun, vaporizing an enemy cruiser in a single, thunderous strike. Smaller destroyers darted forward, releasing clouds of hunter-killer drones that swarmed toward the enemy like a living storm. The first clash was brutal. Human and Kasor ships tore into each other at close range, debris spinning wildly as explosions erupted on all sides. The Vanguard took a heavy hit on her starboard shields, warning alarms screaming across the bridge, but the crew didn't falter. Reese kept his focus on the tactical map, directing ships into precision strike groups that punched through weak points in the enemy formation. For every Deathworlder ship that fell, 3 Kasor vessels burned. In return, still, the sheer mass of the Dominion fleet pressed harder with every passing minute. "They're trying to flank us!" the tactical officer shouted. Reese's eyes narrowed. "Not if we break them first. All ships. Alpha strike pattern." Across the human formation, massive railguns and missile pods roared to life, launching a synchronized barrage. The sudden wall of firepower slammed into the Kasor line, shredding their forward cruisers and throwing their formation into chaos. The Deathworlders surged forward, their engines burning white-hot as they exploited the opening. In the confusion, the Vanguard and her escort group drove deep into the enemy's heart, targeting their command carrier. Enemy fire raked across the hull, but Reese pressed on, every maneuver bringing them closer to the kill. At the perfect moment, the Vanguard's forward rail batteries fired in unison, the kinetic slugs punching through the carrier's shields and detonating its core. The massive ship tore apart in a silent, fiery bloom, and the remaining Kasor vessels began to falter without leadership. The Deathworlders didn't let them recover. They pushed harder, cutting through the disorganized enemy until the survivors scattered into retreat. Silence fell again, but it wasn't victory this time. It was the eye of a storm. Reese knew the Dominion would return, and next time, they might bring their entire armada. As the wreckage drifted and the fleet regrouped, the captain sent a single message to Earth Command. "We held the line, but the real war is just beginning." Under the darkened skies of the alien capital, panic had already begun to take hold as the Deathworlder fleet positioned itself above the atmosphere. From orbit, their ships looked like black shards cutting through the stars, each one bristling with weapons far beyond anything the enemy had faced. Reports poured into the alien command center, communications scrambled, orbital stations falling silent, and fleets annihilated before they could even engage. The alien leaders huddled in the council chamber, their voices low, their faces pale with dread. The humans hadn't spoken a word, hadn't sent a warning or demand. They simply came, responding to the SOS with cold, calculated destruction. Captain Reese stood at the helm of the human flagship, the iron resolve, his eyes fixed on the burning horizon of the alien world below. He knew the message was clear. Earth's Deathworlders did not negotiate with those who preyed on the weak. Every strike was precise, every bombardment targeted only at military facilities. But the sheer scale of their firepower made it feel like the world itself was ending. Down in the alien streets, civilians fled in every direction, the sky above turning red with fire trails from falling debris. Some tried to reach the spaceports, but human blockade ships held the orbital lanes, destroying any craft that attempted to escape. In the war room aboard the Iron Resolve, data screens flickered with status updates from different sectors. Eastern Defense Grid neutralized, one officer reported calmly. Ground resistance collapsing in Sector 7. The humans weren't. Reckless. They had studied their enemy, dismantling defenses in a sequence that left no chance for counterattack. Back on the alien homeworld, General Takar, the commander who had once mocked the idea of human intervention, now watched in silence as his forces crumbled. He remembered the intercepted SOS, the one he had dismissed as a desperate cry from a small colony. He hadn't thought humans would come. Now, they were here, and they were unstoppable. In the orbiting human fleet, smaller escort ships peeled away from the main formation, moving toward key planetary targets. They weren't firing indiscriminately. Each strike was surgical, designed to cripple without obliterating entire cities, but the psychological impact was devastating. The enemy's chain of command fractured, soldiers abandoning their posts, leaders hiding underground. On the ground, a storm of dust and ash filled the air as the first human drop pods landed. These weren't massive armies. They were small, elite strike teams armed with weapons that seemed like science fiction to the locals. They moved fast, disabling enemy strongholds in minutes, their armor deflecting incoming fire with ease. The alien military's last stronghold, Fortress Arun, stood on a plateau surrounded by towering cliffs. It was considered impenetrable. But the Deathworlders didn't attack it head-on. Instead, human engineers planted seismic charges at key points in the surrounding cliffs, collapsing the natural defenses in a controlled detonation that left the fortress exposed. From his command seat, Captain Reese gave the order. A single railgun round, fired from orbit, tore through the fortress walls like they were made of paper. By the time the dust cleared, the alien banners lay in the rubble. In the aftermath, the human forces didn't celebrate. They didn't broadcast victory speeches. They simply extracted their teams, leaving the alien world in silence. The SOS had been answered, but not with comfort or aid. It had been answered with the full, unrelenting might of a species forged in the harshest environments of the galaxy. And now, every world watching knew one truth. Earth's Deathworlders did not come to negotiate. They came to end threats permanently. The alien capital lay in ruins, but the war was far from over because the Deathworlder fleet had not come for one planet alone. Their mission stretched across the empire that had answered the SOS with cruelty instead of aid. Captain Reese stood on the command deck of the Iron Resolve, staring at the tactical display where dozens of red markers lit up representing enemy strongholds spread across multiple systems. Already human task forces were on the move, slipping through hyperspace corridors and striking before the enemy could regroup. The alien High Council had tried to send peace envoys, but every transmission was ignored. Humanity had heard their lies before and knew that any delay would give them time to rebuild, so the order remained the same. Dismantle their war machine completely on the industrial world of Vorath. The alien fleet scrambled to defend. Its massive shipyards but human stealth destroyers had already slipped into orbit using advanced cloaking fields. The enemy did not even see them until the first torpedo detonated inside their largest battleship factory. Explosions ripped through kilometer-long assembly bays, sending molten metal raining down, while human assault craft swarmed in disabling defensive turrets. In minutes, Vorath's skies turned black with smoke as the shipyards collapsed into twisted wreckage. Reports of these Strikes spread fast across the empire, and fear grew like wildfire. Colonies began cutting ties with the High Council, refusing to send resources to the war effort. Some even sent secret messages to the humans, offering information in exchange for protection in the war room aboard the Iron Resolve. Reese reviewed one such message. It came from a governor deep in enemy space, claiming he had the locations of hidden military depots. If humanity promised to spare his world, Reese considered the offer, then passed it to his intelligence officers, who began plotting the new targets. The Deathworlders did not trust easily, but they understood that fear made even loyal servants of the Empire turn against it. Meanwhile, on the frozen moon of Calren, human ground forces were engaged in brutal close quarters, fighting inside massive subterranean bunkers the alien defenders had chosen to make their last stand there. But they were not prepared for the sheer adaptability of human soldiers. Every corridor became a trap. Every locked blast door was breached within seconds. Human combat engineers carried portable shield generators, creating moving walls of protection that advanced with the troops. The alien commanders tried to flood the tunnels with toxic gas, but human suits were already filtered for multiple environments. A lesson learned from surviving their own deadly world above the surface. Human artillery pounded the entrance points, collapsing escape routes until the entire moon was silent after Calren fell. The human fleet moved toward the Empire's communications hub, a massive orbital ring around the star Terevon. It was said that without this hub, the Empire's fleets would be blind, unable to coordinate their defenses. The Deathworlders attacked at dawn cycle, emerging from the void with pinpoint precision. Instead of bombarding the station outright, they hacked into its network using cyber warfare teams aboard the stealth ship Shadowline. Within minutes, the enemy's own satellites began sending false orders, redirecting fleets into ambushes and turning supply convoys into drifting wrecks. Panic consumed the High Council as they realized they could no longer tell which of their systems were safe or under attack. Their maps became useless, their messages intercepted, their fleets scattered. This was not war in the way they understood it. It was extermination of their military capability, piece by piece. Captain Reese did not see it as cruelty. He saw it as insurance. Because the SOS they had ignored had come from a small independent colony that had trusted the Empire to protect them. Instead, the Empire had enslaved and slaughtered them to send a message to others. Humans had come to make sure no one would ever be able to do that again, and with every world they liberated or destroyed, the galaxy's understanding of Earth changed forever from a distant rumor to a force that no empire dared provoke. The Empire was in chaos, its communication networks in shambles and fleets scattered across multiple systems, trying desperately to regroup. Captain Reese of the Iron Resolve watched the tactical display, noting every flicker of movement, every weak point left exposed by the relentless campaign of the Deathworlders. Each destroyed shipyard, each liberated colony, had left the Empire weaker and the humans stronger, their reputation growing with every strike. Intelligence reports indicated that high-ranking commanders were turning on one another, arguing over strategy, blaming each other for the catastrophic failures. It was the perfect moment to press the advantage. Reese issued precise orders to the fleet. Split into 3 groups. Group Alpha will target the remaining forward command posts. Group Beta will intercept fleeing ships and secure resource depots. Group Gamma, my squad, will head for the capital world's orbital defenses. Engage only when conditions are favorable. No unnecessary exposure. The fleet moved like shadows through hyperspace, slipping past enemy patrols and appearing where the Kasor least expected them. On the forward command posts, human strike teams deployed via stealth dropships, disabling orbital cannons and communication arrays in swift, coordinated strikes. Ground troops used portable railguns and energy disruptors to neutralize defensive emplacements, often before the enemy even realized they had arrived. Explosions lit the night sky of each world, but humans maintained strict control, ensuring civilian areas were spared whenever possible. Meanwhile, Group Beta's mission to intercept fleeing ships resulted in stunning success. Covert convoys attempting to retreat to secondary systems were ambushed by human destroyers and stealth frigates. In every encounter, the enemy was outmaneuvered, outgunned, and overwhelmed by superior tactics. Not one human vessel was lost, and the Empire's supplies dwindled rapidly. The Deathworlders' reputation as unstoppable predators only grew, striking fear into every commander still loyal to the High Council. As Group Gamma approached the capital world, the last major bastion of the Empire, Reese analyzed the orbital defenses. The array was massive, a network of energy lances, missile batteries, and heavy railguns designed to vaporize any intruder before atmospheric entry. "They expect us to attack head-on," he murmured. "But they've underestimated us again." The plan was unconventional. Human stealth frigates would neutralize the outer layers of defense with electronic warfare, jamming targeting systems while deploying precision strikes to critical junctions. Meanwhile, the main fleet would wait, at the edge of orbit, ready to exploit any breach. Reese coordinated the timing down to the second, each move calculated to minimize risk and maximize impact. The assault began with near-perfect execution. Frigates slipped past early detection systems, hacking into the orbital grid and turning automated defenses against one another. Explosions ripped through power nodes, sending showers of molten metal into space. Human destroyers surged forward, using the chaos to fire on weakened turrets, tearing them apart with railgun slugs and plasma charges. The Covert retaliated, their energy lances tearing through the void, but they were disorganized and distracted, unsure which human ships posed the greatest threat. In orbit, the Iron Resolve led the main assault, its weapons firing with precise coordination. Each shot was calculated, each salvo devastating, cutting lanes through the enemy's remaining defenses. On the surface, humans deployed rapid response, teams to secure vital installations, capturing weapon silos, energy plants, and communication hubs before the enemy could react. The Covert leadership panicked as their carefully constructed defenses crumbled under relentless human precision. Within hours, the capital world's orbital grid was crippled, its cities isolated, and its fleets trapped in vulnerable positions. Reese ordered boarding teams to take key stations, using magnetically sealed pods to attach to enemy ships and storm control rooms. Marines moved with lethal efficiency, neutralizing resistance before it could organize. The psychological impact was profound. Alien commanders, watching their defenses fail one after another, realized they were being hunted by a force that anticipated every move and struck with merciless precision. As the sun rose over the Empire's capital world, the human fleet held absolute control of orbit. Fires burned across orbital platforms, and the enemy's last command vessels lay crippled. Reese addressed the bridge crew, his voice calm but filled with quiet authority. "The Empire is finished. The SOS has been answered. Every world they oppressed will now see justice." Outside, the survivors of the colonies watched from safe stations, witnessing a force they had never imagined, a species willing to cross galaxies to deliver retribution. The Empire's fleets were scattered, its command structure shattered, and its ability to wage war neutralized. But Reese knew this was more than a military victory. It was a message to every civilization that dared exploit the weak. Earth's Deathworlders did not forgive, and they did not forget. The Empire's capital world burned, its once proud cities reduced to smoldering ruins, yet Captain Reese knew the battle was not yet complete. The Covert High Council, those who had survived the orbital strikes, had fled to hidden stations, deep within the system, attempting to regroup and coordinate a desperate counterattack. On the bridge of the Iron Resolve, Reese studied the tactical display, every red marker representing a potential threat. "We finish this today," he said, voice low but commanding. "No mercy, no mistakes." The Deathworlder fleet moved like a shadow through space, slipping past remaining sensor grids. Human stealth frigates led the approach, cloaked and silent, planting disruption devices on communication satellites and energy relays. The enemy, already shaken, had no idea where the next strike would come from. On the surface, human rapid response. Teams landed at critical points, command bunkers, weapons depots, and power stations, neutralizing any remaining resistance with precise and efficient strikes. Alien soldiers attempted to rally, but every move was anticipated, every escape route cut off. In orbit, the fleet unleashed its full might. Railguns, plasma lances, and missile batteries fired in perfect synchronization, obliterating enemy ships as if they were paper models. The Titan's Wrath, at the center of the formation, fired repeatedly, each round vaporizing cruisers and frigates that dared approach. The Covert fleet, leaderless and scattered, could not mount an organized defense. Amid the chaos, the remaining Council members tried to flee aboard secret vessels, but Deathworlder interceptors tracked and destroyed them before they could reach hyperspace. On the ground, Marines secured every facility, leaving no stronghold untouched. Portable shield generators and armored exosuits allowed human troops to advance through debris-strewn streets, clearing bunkers and tunnels where the last pockets of resistance tried to hide. The alien defenders fell quickly, their morale shattered, their hope extinguished. Captain Reese coordinated the final orbital strikes, targeting the last energy cores and military installations. The High Council's remaining assets were destroyed, their fleets reduced to drifting wrecks. Every human team followed procedure, ensuring that nothing capable of rebuilding the war effort remained. The silence that followed was eerie. Smoke rose from the shattered cities, fires still burning but no shots fired. The SOS had been answered and the Empire lay in ruin. Survivors of oppressed colonies emerged from hiding, witnessing the full extent of the Deathworlder response. Their relief was mixed with awe, seeing a force so vast and precise that it had erased a galaxy-spanning empire in days. Reese addressed his fleet over secure comms, voice calm and resonant. This is the conclusion. Every world they harmed is now free. Their fleets are gone, their leadership destroyed, we leave only justice behind. As human ships departed orbit, moving back toward secure space and Earth's command, the once feared empire had become a cautionary tale for the galaxy. Systems that had lived in fear now dared to rebuild, knowing that when SOS calls reached Earth, the response was absolute. Reese watched from the bridge of the Iron Resolve, eyes scanning the stars for any sign of lingering threats. There were none. The Deathworlders had acted swiftly, decisively, and without hesitation. The message was clear. Any who preyed on the weak would meet the full, unrelenting wrath of Earth's finest. Across the galaxy, whispers spread, civilizations taking note, recording every detail, and learning a simple, immutable truth. Humanity did not negotiate with tyrants, and when it acted, annihilation followed. With the Empire erased, the SOS fulfilled and justice delivered, the fleet set a course for home, leaving behind a galaxy that would remember the day Earth's Deathworlders answered the call.